What up, comrades? This is JX01 with Epiphany TV, .com, .twitch, / here's the video. For some reason, the audio for the video, for the, let's see.
Therefore,
There we go.
communications is one.
Alright, this is the beginning.
We stand opposed to capitalism, the state, colonialism, patriarchy, and white supremacy. And we're trying to reach people to fight these systems and liberate themselves, right? Therefore, communications is one arm of praxis that we definitely need to strengthen. Not every radical needs to do it, but it does need to get done. Propaganda is literally everywhere, in every medium, targeting every audience in every way. It's a spooky word with authoritarian, manipulative connotations for some, but the concept itself is neutral, just referring to the communication meant to influence. Advertising is a type of propaganda meant to promote a particular product, brand, service, or idea that appeals to the personal, shares information, follows trends, and creates brand loyalty and experiences. They seek whatever's profitable, hence the rise of rainbow capitalism. Instagram infographics are propaganda. Unskippable YouTube ads from Abby Shapiro are propaganda. And mainstream news is definitely propaganda. It can't be ignored because propaganda is everywhere we go, which can be kind of sickening. Our views are obstructed and our personal space is violated as the machine pushes itself down our throats. I hate it. Which is almost ironic as someone about to secure their bachelor's in mass communication. Regardless, we still need to be able to communicate with folks on a larger scale. Why? First of all, because of all the narratives and biases that color this world, whether capitalist realism,
I'll tell you why.
white supremacy, patriarchy, etc.
That was a Simon Miller reference.
To combat them, to counter the monopoly in the discourse, and to create a culture of resistance.
That was a Simon Miller reference, by the way. If anybody knows who that is. So, the slapping the forehead and saying, I'll tell you why. It's like a thing he does every week before he does this like show.
Against those narratives. Second of all, because we need to get our information and alternatives out there. Horizontal, grassroots info sharing has been a key aspect of anti-authoritarian praxis, since the pamphlets on the 1800s shop floors and long before then too. Of course, propaganda can only do so much. It must be paired with liberatory action. Even if you personally, perhaps due to disability, can't be on the ground in the most literal sense and can only take part in, say, propaganda, well, first of all, completely understandable. I never want to exclude anyone of any ability from organizing and from radical action. However, I would still say that connecting and coordinating with those who are literally on the ground is essential work. After all, advertising has to be paired with the actual product. Praxis and communications go hand in hand. The ultimate question is how? How to propaganda? These are my thoughts. First and foremost, you have to know who you're targeting and why. Understanding the target audience is an essential part of any ad campaign. Different people have different worldviews, motivations, biases, situations, and experiences that you definitely need to be aware of. What works for some definitely won't work for others, which means you really can't cast a very wide net. In corporate marketing speak, you gotta engage in market segmentation, targeting, differentiation, and positioning. Have a particular people in mind and speak their language. Help educate them. Put things in their context. Empathize with what they're going through. Build meaningful relationships. This is where anarchic advertising differs from real advertising. We actually care. We want to actually empower them, not make them feel empowered by the latest product. Personally, I try to reach people who are similar to me. Working class people of color, students, and people in my generation who are frustrated with the world around them and scared for the future. Reaching other anarchists was always much lower on my agenda, but we tend to have a habit of finding each other. Once you know your target audience and your purpose, you have to think medium. The content of the message is one thing, but as the saying goes,
open up chat here in a second.
message. The channel you use is going to affect the way your message is expressed. A pamphlet is going to look differently and be received differently than a poster or a tweet or an animation or a podcast. Think about how your chosen medium is going to affect your message so that you can adapt your message to your chosen medium. Next up, be unambiguous. Say what you mean what you say. Don't try to water down your goals. Don't try to obscure your intentions. Vague radical language is so often and so easily appropriated. Don't let liberals or other authoritarians hijack the message. Stay unequivocally consistent with your core values, whether you're an anarchist, autonomist, councilcom, communalist, whatever. Keep your message actionable. If all you're doing is complaining about the system, climate change, or oppression as a whole, you're going to demotivate and demoralize people. They're going to look to the first vanguard or party that claims to offer a solution. But if you want people to liberate themselves, the message has to motivate them to act in some meaningful way. It has to emphasize their potency and their initiative. Next, keep your message simple and clear. Drop the jargon and the word salad. That doesn't mean to dumb down or talk down, It just means that, as I mentioned earlier, speak their language. Distill, don't dilute the theory, and make it digestible. Otherwise, you're just going to appeal to those already in radical circles. Some examples of this simple yet energizing approach would be the slogans of the past few decades of social movements. Black Power, We Are the 99%, Free Palestine, No Justice, No Peace. They all capture the essence of the movement while keeping it simple, and provide an easy avenue for further exploration, explanation, and understanding. Lastly, be patient. Not everyone is super politically engaged, which can be easy to forget if you're deeply submerged in online politics. Be prepared to navigate the misconceptions and misunderstandings they may have floating in their head. Don't pretend to know all the answers and don't go on the attack. Especially on a one-on-one basis, engage them in a dialogue. Study the Socratic method. I haven't read At the Cafe, Conversations on Anarchism by Erico Maltester yet, but I've heard it's an excellent example of this. At the same time though, don't expect logic, or logic alone, to win people over. Firstly, because words have to be backed up by action that impacts them, and also because humans are emotional, not logical creatures. Don't underestimate the power of emotion. Empathy was what radicalized me. Theory came after. All in all, there's a lot of ways to send a message, and it depends on your context, intentions, audience, resources, and medium. You can take an active approach, engaging with audience directly, putting conflict in context, engaging in solidarity, and doing whatever is necessary to complement on-the-ground action. Or you can take a passive approach, sharing ideas, tactics, theory, praxis guides, or current events. Don't limit yourself, be adaptable, and use whatever tools are available to you. Don't overthink it either. We do what we do because we care about this earth and its inhabitants. We're not in the business of trickery, deceit, or profiteering. We're just trying to resist. Our politics are personal. Let that inform your approach. As individuals, we may not be as powerful as corporate media. In fact, we're overwhelmed by the immense resources of the various state and corporate media machines. Still, together, we can make some noise. Be creative, be loud, and be many. The internet has been an invaluable asset for our work.
I got the chat now.
Collectives and individuals can connect with other collectives and individuals all over the world. We're able to build solidarity like never before. We're able to amplify our aims like never before. People are angry, people are frustrated. Many are ready to really fight back and really fight for something better. As long as our actions and our words are paired, we can make more of a difference than we might first expect. Just as our uprisings rock the world, so can our propaganda. Peace. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share with your fellow peoples. Thanks once again, of course, to the family, including our newest members, Soul Dad, If you can, join these beautiful humans and support me too on patreon.com/sainttrue. Check out all my other videos for a range of radical topics. Follow me on Twitter at _sainttrue. Thanks again. Peace.
I'm going to edit this window real quick and then play some Quake. Just got to crop the top a little bit. My dog wants to go outside also. All right, I'll be right back.
I'm your new teacher. My name is Mrs. Simpson.
I've spoken about the youth and education a lot on this channel, mostly because our treatment of the youth, especially in schools, lays the foundation of their lives under capitalism. However, I also want to speak from my own personal experience as a former homeschooler. Homeschooling is a lifestyle that few know about beyond stereotypes, and it's also an area that I believe those fighting for liberation can adapt and learn from. I've decided to use my platform to discuss what homeschooling is, my experience with it, its strengths and weaknesses, and its liberatory potential. Throughout this video, I also hope to answer the questions that you all commented on my YouTube community post. Feel free to ask any more questions in the comments though. Let's begin. Homeschooling, or home education, is the education of school-aged children at home or at a variety of places other than school. It's usually conducted by a parent or parents, but sometimes tutors or online teachers get involved. Historically speaking, it was actually pretty common. I mean, you'd be taught by parents, peers, family, and community, sometimes through apprenticeships. Being taught at home by a family and clan was the style of learning for most of human history. Everything changed with the rise in compulsory attendance laws, of course. Homeschooling declined and classrooms were filled. And it should be noted, by the way, that compulsory schooling was often used by colonizers to enact cultural genocide in the indigenous peoples they were colonizing, to erase their histories, knowledges, and practices. As Richard Henry Pratt said of his assimilationist boarding schools for Native Americans, kill the Indian, save the man. For almost as long as public schooling has existed, people have been calling it out. Bakunin called out the inequalities of schooling, while Sterner criticized the utilitarian approach to education, calling instead for a pedagogy toward the development of free people as sovereign characters. Francisco Ferrer actually organized independent libertarian schooling in Spain, free from the oversight of the Catholic Church, and his movement did inspire others to do the same. But he was executed for his involvement in anti-war protests and insurrection in Madrid. Naturally. Around the mid-20th century, homeschooling began to be called homeschooling. Education professionals Raymond and Dorothy Moore started calling out the serious flaws in the early childhood education movement and became homeschooling advocates after publishing their first work, Better Late Than Early, in 1975. Ivan Illich was also critical of the whole compulsory state schooling thing at the time, advocating for deschooling. Paul Goodman called the whole system compulsory miseducation. John Holtz, the so-called father of homeschooling, and a friend of the Moores, published a sort of guide for developing a children's underground railroad to help kids escape compulsory schooling. He also began publishing a magazine called Growing Without School, which went on from 1977 to 2001. In those early days, homeschoolers often had to work with local school boards and occasionally had trouble navigating legal procedure. Soon there would be a wave of religious homeschoolers, anxious about the devil in the school system, around the mid-80s. Some right-wing Calvinist guy named Rousas John Rujdoni attacked the evils of secular schooling and called for homeschooling for the religious right instead. His efforts were bolstered by the work of conservative Christian organizations like Focus on the Family. Their refusal to cooperate with local school boards led to intense legal battles, and they began petitioning on the state level. Oversight of homeschooling today differs widely from state to state. Scholars tend to divide homeschooled students into three main categories, with some outliers and overlap. First are the progressives, who homeschool to free their children from the constraints of traditional school, unschooling and letting their children follow their interests. Second are the fundamentalist Christians, who homeschool for religious reasons and tend to exclude others from their groups or communities. And third are the individuals who did not initially intend to homeschool, but ultimately adopted homeschooling anyway for practical reasons when other educational methods didn't work out for their children. That second group, the religious homeschooling right, quickly overtook the others. They eventually even excluded the Seventh-day Adventist Raymond Moore because they didn't consider him Christian enough, and they often required statements of faith to receive any support from their organizations. Michael Farris, the founder of the anti-LGBT pro-life Homeschool Legal Defense Association, quickly became the leader of the evangelical homeschooling movement. While early homeschoolers focused on liberating children from formal school, the evangelical homeschool movement had a vision of a wave of homeschooled children who could be launched into positions of power in the United States to transform it into a Christian nation. Wild stuff. But that's enough history. Read Mitchell Stevens' book, Kingdom of Children, for more information. With the rise of the internet, access to information for and about homeschooling has skyrocketed, and various companies and programs have arisen to capitalize on the whole movement. The major divide between the pedagogues and the ideologues still exists today, and often accounts for the stark differences in homeschooling approach. The ideologues have huge, well-funded hierarchical organizations, while the pedagogues have looser, more democratic organizations. Still, when it comes to homeschooling in practice, it's quite difficult to make any sweeping generalizations. I would say that everything varies, and especially motivations. Perhaps the local school quality is poor, or the child is being bullied, or the school is incapable of catering to the child's special needs. Perhaps the parents want the child to have more free time for their childhood. Or in some cases, parents want to indoctrinate their children into a particular homeschooling has sometimes been their response to the manifestations of systemic
Yeah, I'm only gonna
racism
play
in
for about
schools
5 more minutes
and the
because
lack of an
Dynamite's
in-depth
about to start.
education on Black history.
I just want to come on here.
Some
and show
parents
stuff.
need to homeschool because they're living in rural nowhere, or they travel around a lot, or their child is a really dedicated athlete or musician. Sometimes the kids just want the flexibility and appreciate the undisturbed learning environment, or they have health needs and have to work at home. The actual style of homeschooling varies considerably. There's schooling at home or distant education, which isn't really homeschooling but rather something that folks have had to do thanks to the pandemic. There's also those who just import the classroom into the household with tutors and heavy books and the whole ordeal. Some are very hands-on with a sort of apprenticeship style. Some use the multiple intelligences approach. Some order a curriculum from a religious organization. Some, of course, are dedicated unschoolers. Homeschooling families usually experiment with a few different styles, adding, subtracting, and combining as needs be. And of course, people's experiences vary. Some kids are indoctrinated, manipulated, or abused. Meanwhile, others thrive in a truly fulfilling learning environment. Like I said, it's difficult to make any sweeping claims. So with all that in mind, I want to take some time to share my honest, personal experience with homeschooling. Skip ahead if you're not interested. My homeschool journey began early. I'd done my time at preschool and infant school, plus my first year at primary school, but I was out of there by the end of Standard 1, just after I turned 7. My parents are deeply Christian people, so they felt called to bring us home and teach us that way. When we first began, we were basically copying the local school system at home. Of course, we occasionally went on field trips, and there was the addition of lengthy Bible devotions, but for the most part, we were doing the usual bookwork. Our day was structured and consistent. Between ages 8 to 11, my mom invested in an American Christian reading-based curriculum, because my siblings and I were pretty heavy bookworms. I really enjoyed those books, fiction and non-fiction. They covered all sorts of topics. I was reading Detectives in Togas to learn more about ancient Rome, The Golden Goblet to learn more about ancient Egypt, digging into a child's history of the world, and so much more. Of course, there was a lot of math, and science education was more of a hit and
One second, I'll be right back.
since the Christian curriculum was anti-climate change and anti-evolution. But I learned from the internet later on. I had occasional tests, and technically speaking, all my work was homework. I loved it. It had its issues.
Friend is watching this documentary called
While
Count
my
Me
mom
In
was a
about
certified
drummers.
foreign language teacher,
Um,
I never really picked up bilingualism, and not for lack of trying. She relied heavily on the books and the internet to fill in the gaps of her ignorance. But because we mostly worked with an American curriculum, I didn't learn much beyond the basics when it came to colonialism and my own local culture and history. My mom was no radical, so my homeschooling still had a lot of the same propaganda that state schooling does. But it was all she knew. It's all most people know, so I couldn't blame her. Tobago, where I'm from, has this intensely problematic, unnecessarily stressful national entrance exam for primary school students to enter secondary school. It's called the Secondary Entrance Assessment, or SEA. It's a very classist system, but we don't have time to unpack all that. My mom wanted to have some record of our academic progress, so she blended the bookwormish curriculum stuff with the local curriculum stuff to prepare me for the exam. I passed at the age of 12, I think, with flying colors and got placed in my first choice school. And I was given a choice. I could either continue my homeschooling journey or I could go into secondary school for Form 1. I chose to continue, and since my mom was focusing on educating my other siblings, I was bestowed with the responsibility of educating myself, which I did. That shift to self-schooling was one of the best moves of my life so far. From the age of 12 to 15, I was basically running the show, freeform. She invested in a different booklet-based curriculum to help me along with my basic subjects, but I was on top of things. I'd wake up early, get my required stuff done, and then learn and do whatever I wanted after, mostly on the internet. I did a lot of creative writing. Sometimes I'd spend most of my days in the library, and that freedom to direct my own learning still drives me to this day. I was able to travel to a few other countries thanks to my dad's job, and I also tried many different activities, inconsistently, throughout, including track and field, violin, guitar, painting, and, well, most consistently out of all of them, swimming.
I like that you can swim.
It was good times. But there was a world outside of my happy learning bubble. My country also has an exam called CSEC at the end of Form 5 of secondary school, based on the subjects you'd have picked up and been learning from Form 4. There are 2 exam periods every year,
What's up,
January and June. So as I was about to begin Form 4 in September, when I was 14,
I'm gonna pause this.
I decided to just try the January exams.
About
That would leave me
to,
about 4 months to learn 2 school years of work in time for the exam. Bet.
So I gotta leave here by 8 o'clock. I think that has more than enough time to do on it. Hey, how are you, Mama? And my friend Casey's here. He just came back in. I'm just gonna play a little bit more Quake before Dynamite starts. I'm gonna play until about 7:55, so I won't be here much longer. All right, and this is I don't really play much first-person shooters, but I just decided to didn't work. It was funny how I just said swimming. You can go back and watch. I said swimming right when he said swimming. I was like, I just jumped in the water, and then the guy on the video said it. But I love St. Andrewism. It's a really good video. I usually, if you haven't watched my stream before, I watch stuff about psychoanalytics, politics sometimes, video games, ADHD, comedy, wrestling, all kinds of stuff, and then we talk about it. And then I play video games. Tomorrow is VR day. I'm going to do some VR playing tomorrow. Right now, I'm just trying to find this other key. There's a second key. The first one was here. And the other one?
Are you playing Quake or Doom?
Quake. All the Quakes are available on Xbox Game Pass or
Which
PC.
Quake is this?
One.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, the other Quakes are available though on Xbox Game Pass.
Quake 2, I'm all about.
They have Quake PC and Quake oh shoot. Quake PC and Quake so on the Game Pass for PC, you can get all the Quakes, and on this one you can get like Quake 1 and 2. I think there's a new Quake coming out. That's the reason why they're putting them all up on there like that. Man, if Quake in VR would be awesome.
I still
Yeah.
want to even though I've heard it's shitty, I still want to do Skyrim Quake. Or
VR?
VR.
I can get that. I can. I had it. I'll have to buy it. I only downloaded it. I just because I wanted to try it, so I pirated it temporarily. But I've bought it a million times. I mean, I don't think. Well, what?
I bought that game so many times.
Pass through the arch to exit. All right. I think once we pass through this arch, we're exiting in real life too. I made today. Just an update. I made some VR stuff happen today. I got this thing where I can be an avatar, where I can move my hands and shit, and you can see it. So I can put that right there.
Whoa.
My friend's playing my old guitar that he bought from me. Um, he's really good at guitar. So we'll have that tomorrow too. I'll let him play us out. I'm gonna switch my virtual background over so you can see him. Um,
That was actually like right in key.
Thanks. I've been playing for like 20 years. No, a little bit. So yeah, I figured out how to do some pretty cool shit with VR and stuff. You can like look at your chat on your wrist, which I have a habit of.
Mine unplugged, I think, because I had to put in the amp.
I'm trying to show off my dice thingy here. It's the one piece of RGB light that you can see on my camera. Was outside my headphones. There we go. Anyway, we'll play some VR tomorrow. One second, I want to
Break it down.
Wrong wrestling show. But yeah, join us tomorrow. It'll be fun. We're gonna do some VR. I might come back and Twitch a little bit tonight after 10 o'clock. On TNT right now. Dynamite. CM Punk. Bryan Danielson. Go watch it, even if you don't watch wrestling.